You are on Morning Express. Thank you so much for staying with KTN News. It is 6:30. It's time for us to dive into the local dailies and see some of the stories making headlines. Of course, we'll begin with the Standard newspaper this morning. Secrets hand in MP's sugar probe standoff. The stalemate between these says that some members of the Joint Committee accuse powerful government officials of fighting their bid to unravel the truth behind the contaminated sugar. Who are some of these powerful government officials who are being accused? But also, one of the biggest stories is the aspect of the Rift MPs now want a change on how to tackle the Mao evictions. And on a lighter note, a new study that shows that Catholics ignore church when it comes to family planning. I'll hand over to my colleague Michael Gitonga, who has a well-enabled panel to take us through this morning on Press Review. Michael?
All right, and well, I'll start off first of all by introducing the panel that we have this morning. To my extreme left, we have Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, who is the Deputy Party Leader for ANC. We have Kembi Gitura, Honorable Kembi Gitura, who is the immediate former Senator for Murang'a County. And last but not least, we have Ambrose Weda, who is a lawyer. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning on Morning Express. And let's start off with the Standard's headline, Secret Hand in MP's Sugar Probe Standoff. I'll start with you, Kembi Gitura, on whether this surprises you, as to whether there seems to be a secret hand in the MP's probe on standoff, and more importantly, the fact that this is taking longer than we'd expect. And one would imagine that there is a proper trail where we can trace the origin of this sugar, who owns this sugar, where did it come from?
Well, this sugar thing is becoming too much, if you ask me. And we've discussed, for the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've talked about sugar.
Yes.
In this panel. Mm-hmm. And I think it's becoming more ridiculous by the day. Because, like we said 3 or so weeks ago, when this issue first arose, it's ridiculous that cabinet secretaries are not giving us a straightforward answer on the sugar. Mm. Immediately it happened, CS Matiangi told us there was mercury in the sugar. 2 days later, CS Adan told us there was no mercury in the sugar. Mm. And they serve in the same cabinet. And I remember as the three of us here saying that that was the most ridiculous thing, because there was something called collective responsibility in cabinet, mm-hmm. When we were younger people reading civics in primary school. So now that the saga is still continuing, mm-hmm. and we have no answer, I was reading yesterday that some sugar was found in an army barrack, which has contamination, mm-hmm. Which has copper or some other heavy metals. So I think we need to get a closure on this issue. And I think finally somebody needs to tell us the truth. The truth. I don't know who it is, mm-hmm. but somebody needs to tell us the truth, because there is one KEBS, there is one cabinet secretary for the internal security, there is one cabinet secretary for trade, mm-hmm. and I think they need to tell us the truth finally, okay, so that Kenyans can know what is going on. I don't know whether you know it, but a lot of Kenyans are not taking sugar. Right now, well, right now, because they are scared. they would like to know exactly what is going on. If your government cannot be able to give you a definitive answer on an issue like sugar, then I don't know what we are waiting for.
Evidently, there's something wrong. Honorable Kira, we have the government, you know, the guys who do the tests and all that from the laboratory, and he was supposed to appear before the committee, but apparently, according to some of the committee members, apparently there was a hand that ensured that he did not appear. This, of course, is getting, the more we know, the more we don't know.
Well, let's begin with the collective responsibility. I would have expected that by now, one minister or office of the president does make a statement on the state of affairs of sugar, because we are no longer worried whether there was illicit sugar, contraband sugar, but we are worried whether this sugar is laced with impurities that may not be fit for human consumption. Remember, when they did the tests that we were told some time back, 28% of the sugar were found to have, of the samples, were found to have impurities. that is not a small sample. You cannot just
wish it away.
Extrapolate it and say, okay, because 28, then 72 is okay. Because if there are any impurities, whether it is 1%, it means these are the samples tested. Now in the wild, there may be many other samples of sugar that is laced with impurities. Now, it also brings into disrepute the name of the government, because we must always trust our government, that whatever is happening, at the end of the day, the government is the final arbiter in issues of food, in issues of security, and in all aspects of human endeavor. And therefore, it is worrying, it is eroding the name of the government, and what we need to do is to know what is the problem. My own, I can just aver that the problem is that the money in sugar is so much, because the sugar that they have imported is enough sugar for around 4 importations, which means in the next 4 years, we don't need to import any more sugar as long as we are still producing the component.
And of course, that now would put us at risk if this sugar has impurities. Because if we have consuming the same sugar for the next 4 years, that is definitely not good news for Kenya.
It's a major serious problem because of the issue of cancer. We've been told that cancer and many other lifestyle diseases arise out of the food that we eat.
All right, let me bring in Weda on this, and Weda, your thoughts on this. There seems to be a merry-go-round that is being played here, and the question is, there's a committee that has been put forth to give us answers. They're not coming out with answers, and these are the legislators that that are representing the people, really.
I really don't think you'd expect answers from the MPs. You saw the way they were jumping over Mr. Rai and a red carpet for him and doing selfies with him and so on and so forth. And the ministers just said that sugar has money, big money. And one of the big importers was Mr. Rai. He came in, and you could see everybody was trying to attract his attention. Then they did some funny report very quickly. They took to their colleagues who told them nonsense. But Parliament did not reconstitute this committee to say, now that you people have behaved in a manner, let's have new people. It's the same people who went to Mombasa and tried to write a report. I think they were divided. So they would not themselves get to the truth because of conflict of interest. But it is in the interest of the country that we know the sugar that was imported, was it having a problem? Because the only agency that can tell
is KEBS.
Is KEBS. Because when you import anything, all you give as specifications. Even when you import a car, you say, I want a car like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, and you fill it, and you send, and you'll be told it will cost you this much. They have an inspection, international inspection agency that says, fine. Then when it comes into the country, they also say, fine. You, the importer, you have no way of knowing. So when they look at it and they say, fine, it is fine. So Parliament would have gone through that, the agency would have gone through that, but the way you could see them caressing Mr. Rai and a key player, then you would be a fool to expect that they would
So now, what should Kenyans expect? Because at the end of the day, we are talking about a matter of life and death here. This is our health. But like you rightly put it, looking at the body language of the members of parliament and listening to what they have to say, it looks like we would be expecting too much to expect answers.
It would be expecting too much from the MPs, okay? I think it would be, the question would be basically KEBS to come and say, the sugar that we have from this place is like this. If we got sugar from Brazil, from Australia, there were some of them coming through Kismayu. They should be able to separate and then tell us, this one is like this one is like this, and then you trace them where they are, and you deal with whoever authorized them to come in, but not from the MPs. Now they are trying to pretend, oh, there's a secret hand. When you go to Mombasa to write a report, which secret hands you write and
Actually,
vote?
from the report, they even say that the report may be doctored. The version that they have come with
But they are there. When
doctored.
you finish the report, then you say, this is the report we have written. If it is doctored, you again go to Parliament and say, no, that is not what we wrote. These are just to prepare you that they are not coming with the report.
All right, and we encourage you to get yourself a copy of the Standard and read for yourself and see the intrigues that surround the sugar saga that has been going on for long. Zinzi, what else do we look at in the Standard?
Michael, take a look at page 4 of the Standard this morning. It's one of Uhuru's big 4 agendas, but even apart from that, of course, is the issue of Mau, where Rift Valley MPs changed tack on the Mau forest evictions. The court declines to halt evictions as lawmakers warn Murkomen of his statements. Whether I think one of the biggest questions that Kenyans have is the issue of compensation. So you have Kenyans who have found themselves in the riffraffs between all this, be it the stalls that we saw in around Side Center, those are businesses gone down, homes and schools. So the issue of compensation, where do Kenyans start? Where does one start to rebuild a school, their businesses and their homes?
I think after the coming in of the NAC government, where my big brother was, the Kibaki government, Kenyans should have learned that grabbed land or encroaching land, or however long it takes, you may be called upon to leave. We saw big buildings, huge ones, coming down. So when you encroach, eventually it will come up. And these people, those who you saw the Mau forest, people were evicted. Some people went back. And they knew that a time will come when they will be called upon to leave. What I can say is, it is for the MPs not to politicize it. And it's also for government to ensure, these are Kenyans, they are not strangers. So that when we evict them, let's evict them as Kenyans. Let's find out who they are, where they are going, how they are going to go there. To actually squat on a land does not mean you have committed treason, high treason or murder. You'd be able to say, here we want to do a road. You have been here, where else are you going? So just evicting at night and not caring where they're going, that is irresponsible. That is bad. And I think the MPs are not handling it well. They are politicizing. And some people go there and they address huge rallies. And they dance there and they come out. They do not know that to some of these people, it is their life, it is their children, it is their school. So government, on the other hand, should not shut his eyes and say these people are encouragers. It should say, these are the number of people and we want you to go here.
I would love to hear your thoughts, because a lot of conversation around Mau issue is that, is it a political issue? Because it's more so, for example, an environmental problem. If you look at Kenya's deforestation and where we are at. So is this a political issue? Should it even be politicized when it's more so an environment aspect?
It's a difficult question, but I think it must be dealt with head on. I think these are not things that we need to politicize or give too much talk. When Thika Road was to be built, the superhighway, if you remember, because I travel on that road maybe 3 times a week, there was a very big Nakumat just near Roasters.
Where Naivas is now.
Where Naivas is now. No, not where Naivas is. Naivas is far behind. There was a Nakumat, and it was brought down one morning, and people thought, hiya, you mean this can happen? Because that's why we shopped as we were going to Muranga. But it was on a road reserve. That's what we did have land. And obviously, it was a multi-million shilling investment, but it was brought down. And that is what should happen. Because you cannot, you know, people can talk about human rights, but there is no right that supersedes everything else. There is no right that doesn't have a limit. If you build on a road reserve, you know very well that you're going to be asked to leave at one point. If you look at all the bypasses that have been built in Nairobi, the missing links, for instance, near Yaya, you know, coming from Westlands to going towards James Geshuru Road, there used to be garages built there and every other thing.
There was even some where there were houses.
There were even houses. But this had been planned many, many years back in the 70s. And they were in the Nairobi Metropolitan Plan. And when President Kibaki's time came to build those roads, everybody was removed. Now, imagine that if we are still litigating about those things, those roads would not have been there. Now, in Kibera, for instance, they need to build that road. And the people in Kibera, and I feel sorry for them, but let's be realistic. They know they're on a road reserve. You cannot come to my land, for instance, my small little piece of land in Muranga, and then squat there. And when I evict you, say that you need to be compensated. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is taking the ridiculous to new heights. To
new heights.
To new heights, because some things have to be done. If you're in living on a public land in Kibera, and a railway line has to pass through there because it's public land, and you knew you didn't buy that land, you didn't acquire it in any way, you just went there and squatted, you cannot then claim ownership of that land. And against the government, you cannot have adverse possession what you call prescriptive rights. You cannot. Now, Mau is a very important situation. If we joke around with Mau, listen, Murang'a County, where I come from, supplies 80% of the water that is consumed in Nairobi. And some people religiously take care of their badeas on that part where Nakaine Dam is. If they stop to do it, if they squatted there, if they started destroying that forest, there'll be no water to drink in Nairobi because the other dams are not sufficient to give Nairobi water. So we have to take care of that place called Dakaine so that water can come to Nairobi. We have not been compensated. We are still arguing about that too as people of Murang'a. But that's a story for another day. So when people talk about it, the Murkomens talk about Mau. They are joking around. They are joking around with the lives of Kenyans.
All right.
And that, in my view, should not be allowed to happen.
Okay.
People may talk about humane eviction of people, of other people from reserves like these ones, but I don't know how it's going to be done, but people must also be told that you cannot destroy heritage of Kenyans.
For personal gain. All right, and I guess Mau maybe...
And definitely not for political reasons.
And not for political reasons. And allow me to move on to something else because of time. And on page 11 of the Standard, we have Raila allies turning heat on Wetangula and Honorable Kirwa. There seems to be trouble in NASA yet again. Well, there are those who have said, why don't we just fold up NASA and, call it a day, that it doesn't exist. But, yeah, there seems to be now problems for Wetangula.
Well, I don't think there are serious problems for Mheshimiwa Wetangula because these are just normal dynamics of political parties that came together for the purpose of winning an election. And we didn't win the election. And therefore, we are not settled properly because like us in ANC, we are not part of the CORD alliance. We just came in as part of the expanded NASA to join Fort Kenya, Wiper, and ODM. And we had very clear terms in terms of how are we going to engage for the next 5 years, the pre-election pact that we had. And some of the statements when I hear is that people are not either informed or they have chosen to be oblivious of what is obtaining in the records. NASA cannot be said to be dead until 3 parties write to the registrar of political parties that they are pulling out of NASA. That is when the collapse of NASA will take place. Okay, so as far as you're concerned, NASA is still alive? NASA is still alive. It may be in ICU, it may be in general ward, but it is an entity that is anchored on the law. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Me cutting in. Over this weekend, we saw another handshake happen between Moses Wetangula and that of Wamalwa. A lot of people would say that this is the hand of Deputy President William Ruto at work. Would you agree that probably that's the cause why also Honorable Wetangula is also facing a lot of pressure?
No, I don't want to get into the details of dynamics, but Wetangula and Eugene come from the same sub-community of the Luya nation. And I think it is in the interest of the two gentlemen that they are working together. Because like in Trans Nzoia, we lost a number of seats because of the division between Wetangula and Eugene. I'm sure when Wetangula and Eugene are reading from the same script, you can forget the two counties, Trans Nzoia and Bungoma, that anybody else can penetrate.
All right.
All right, and that's matters politics. Let's now look at the Daily Nation, where we have the headline, Land Boss Adds Insult to Injury. Another, well, let's say charade that Kenyans have been treated to. We have sugar, we have NYS, now we have land, and it seems not to be getting to the bottom. Ambrose Weda, your thoughts on what's going on with this particular issue of land? And the land's boss has added insult to injury, according to this article. He has blown 5 billion on taxes of suspected Raraka deals, meaning, the deal that apparently the government bought and sold to itself, with another 5 billion in the pipeline. But Sozuri thinks the fleecing and swindling, as usual, to borrow Parliament's term.
I think if you look at this Raraka land issue, then we need to cheer ourselves. We need to clap for ourselves and say, hallelujah. It is a lot easier to make millions of shillings very quickly. It is not just a charade, it's a big joke. Why do I say it's a big joke? I am told it is more difficult to steal money coming from the exchequer and more dangerous than to steal others, because the paper trail is clear. Now, this money I hear came out and was shared overnight. So it means it was destined to be shared. And when the likes of Swazuri comes and continue talking and continue doing all these things they are doing, then we need to cheer ourselves when we go to the likes of Kabura and the other ones, Ngerita. The people who we should use as witnesses. If I remove money and I give it to my maid, ordinarily you'd go and ask my maid, where have you gotten this 30 million? He'll tell you, my boss. Then you say, you'll explain. You will be my witness. But if you take my maid and you take everybody, then we have a right to keep quiet. Because you know, Garancid has a right to keep quiet. So we all keep quiet. How do you prove it? When you see, I think we need just to cheer ourselves and say, let all of us just pick money from the treasury, share it out, and then keep quiet. And then Kenyans get hungry and they beat everybody. This is a big joke.
Honorable Gitura, do you think we should also be clapping for ourselves, you know, in cheering and saying that Kenya, well, we have billions that ends up in people's pockets. Shame on us.
I don't think so. I don't think there's anything to clap ourselves for. I'm sure he is being sarcastic, but these are very serious issues. I think Swazuri should give us a break. And I think it is time that Swazuri and his commission is put to task and to the test. Because it's ridiculous that we are talking about a land in Ruaraka, 9.6 acres, right? Which is supposed to be 10% of 96 acres that he owned out there, or that he surrendered when he subdivided it. We need to get a break out of this nonsense, because it's utter nonsense. How is it not possible to trace back that land to its original? Because unless they have destroyed the records at Land's office.
Which they would have done maybe intentionally.
Because there used to be records, and I know I practiced law for too many years to be given this kind of nonsense, really. They need to trace it back where it came from, and what was surrendered, who was the original owner, how it was surrendered, and who bought it. These things we are reading, that the Ministry of Education hastened the payment of 1.5 billion shillings, and procedurally, that we had to do a supplementary budget in Parliament so that this money could be paid, and there was no urgency, like CS Amina Mohammed said the other day. We need to know the truth. I mean, this charade is becoming too much. And it's becoming quite nonsensical, if you ask me, that we are reading about 1.5, 3.2. I was reading a personal statement the other day written in social media by somebody who claims to know a lot about this land. I mean, Jesus, I mean, you know, Kenyans are going to get to a breaking point because they cannot sustain this thing anymore. Today you're reading about 0.5 billion, 3.2, then about sugar, which has mercury and copper.
We have
NYS, for Christ's sake,
season 1 and season 2.
How do you expect Kenyans to take this kind of nonsense? How do you expect Kenyans to sustain this kind of thing, where every day we are reading things that we have not... I mean, Kiro.
All right, Honorable Gitura, obviously...
I don't understand what's going on. To tell you the truth, one gets very annoyed because, when I may talk about clapping for ourselves, but I ask myself, when did we sink so low that we don't even know ourselves anymore?
All right, I'll have to pause you right there because we need to release our KTN home viewers. And I know Kipruto Arap Kiro are not given you a chance on this, but State of the Nation is coming up very shortly. It is now 5 minutes to 7. We want to release our KTN home viewers. And, well, for those of us on KTN News, do stay with us. We have State of the Nation coming up on the other side of the break.
This is KTN News.